Ambassador Derek Shaw sat in his chair and listened to the Torvani representative insult his species for the third time that hour. The council chamber was vast, filled with beings from 100 different worlds, and most of them were either laughing or pretending not to notice. The humans, Councillor Vethrak said, his forearms spread wide for dramatic effect, have once again failed to develop their territories properly. They sit on resource-rich worlds and do nothing with them. They build small homes. They plant gardens. They raise their children in peace. He said the last word like it was something disgusting. They are not worthy of the space they occupy. Derek kept his face calm. He had been doing this for 20 years. He knew how to smile when he wanted to scream. The Galactic Council had existed for thousands of years before humanity ever left Earth. When humans finally reached the stars 80 years ago, they found a universe already full of ancient civilizations, established trade routes, and complex political alliances. They also found a simple truth that their leaders understood immediately. Newcomers who acted strong did not last long. Derek remembered the old recordings from the first contact. The human delegation had watched the other species carefully. They saw how the Torvani bullied smaller races. They saw how the Kreth Dominion crushed any civilization that showed military ambition. They saw the graves of a dozen species who had tried to claim their place through force. So humanity made a choice. They smiled. They bowed. They asked for small territories and thanked the council for every scrap they were given. They shared their music and their art and their food. They offered help to anyone who needed it. They never raised their voice in council meetings. They never threatened. They never boasted. For 80 years, humanity had been the galaxy's friendly neighbor. The species that everyone liked but nobody respected. The ones who were too soft, too kind, too weak to be taken seriously. And every single day of those 80 years had been a lie. Derek watched Vethrak finish his speech. The Torvani was tall, covered in gray scales, and absolutely certain of his own superiority. His species had conquered a dozen worlds through force, and they saw humanity's kindness as an invitation. Therefore, Vethrak announced, the Torvani Collective formally claims the human colonies in the Outer Reach, the worlds designated as Haven, New Portland, and Sunrise. These territories are now under Torvani authority. A murmur went through the chamber. Some species looked uncomfortable. Most looked bored. A few looked amused. Derek stood slowly. Every eye turned to him. Councillor Vethrak, he said, keeping his voice steady. Those worlds are home to 6 million human citizens, families, children. You cannot simply claim them. Vethrak laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. According to Section 47 of the Galactic Territory Code, any world that has not achieved sufficient development within 100 years of settlement may be claimed by a more capable species. Your people have had 80 years. You have built farms and schools and hospitals. He made a dismissive gesture. You have not built weapons. You have not built warships. You have not built anything that matters. Those colonies are peaceful, Derek said. They harm no one. Exactly, Vethrak replied. They are weak, and the weak do not get to keep what the strong want. Derek looked around the chamber. He saw pity in some faces. He saw agreement in others. He saw the High Speaker, the ancient being called Yulan, watching with tired eyes. Yulan had seen this happen before. Strong species taking from weak ones. It was the way of the galaxy. No one was going to help. Derek sat back down. He folded his hands in his lap. He waited until the session ended and the representatives began to leave. Then he walked to a private communication room, sealed the door, and sent an encrypted message to Earth. The message was short. They have crossed the line. Requesting authorization for Protocol 17. 12 hours later, The response came. It was even shorter. Authorized. God help them. On Earth, in a building that officially did not exist, Admiral Henry Cole read the authorization order and felt something he had not felt in decades. He felt tired. Not physically tired, but tired in his soul. Tired of pretending. Tired of smiling. Tired of watching his people be mocked and threatened and dismissed. He was 63 years old. He had joined the military when he was 18, back when the military was something humanity kept hidden. Back when the public face of Earth was scientists and artists and diplomats, while the real power trained in secret, built in secret, and waited in secret. 80 years of waiting. 80 years of watching humanity play the fool while building something terrible and beautiful in the shadows. Admiral Cole pulled up a communication channel. His face appeared on screens across 100 hidden bases, on ships that were listed as cargo vessels, in facilities buried deep underground on worlds that the galaxy thought were undefended. "This is Admiral Cole," he said. "Protocol 17 is now active. All units are to move to Readiness Level 1. Maintain cover until further orders." He paused. He thought about his daughter, who lived on Haven with her husband and their 2 little boys. He thought about what the Torvani would do to them if they took that world. He thought about 80 years of patience, of planning, of sacrifice. "The Torvani have claimed our people," he continued. "They believe we are weak. They believe we are prey. They believe they can take whatever they want from us because we have never fought back." He leaned forward, and his voice dropped to something cold and hard. "They are about to learn how wrong they are. 80 years of smiling. I suppose that is long enough." He ended the transmission and sat alone in the dark room. Around him, across the galaxy, humanity began to wake up. Ships changed course. Weapons came online. Soldiers who had spent their entire careers pretending to be merchants and farmers and teachers put on uniforms that had been waiting in sealed containers for decades. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. They had looked at humanity and seen only what humanity wanted them to see, a kind, gentle species that posed no threat to anyone. They had never thought to ask why a species would choose to appear weak. They had never wondered what humanity might be hiding behind all those smiles. They were about to find out. The message arrived at the Galactic Council exactly 24 hours after the Torvani made their claim. It came through official channels, properly formatted, with all the correct diplomatic codes. The only thing unusual about it was the content. To the Galactic Council and the Torvani Collective, humanity formally requests the withdrawal of all claims on human territory within 72 hours. This is not a negotiation. This is not a discussion. This is a statement of fact. Withdraw or face the consequences. Signed, Admiral Henry Cole, Earth Defense Command. High Speaker Yulan read the message 3 times. Something about it made him uneasy, though he could not say exactly what. He had lived for over 1,000 years. He had seen many species rise and fall. He had watched the aggressive ones burn bright and die fast, and the peaceful ones fade slowly into irrelevance. Humanity had always seemed like the second type, quiet, kind, destined to eventually disappear, absorbed by stronger neighbors. But this message did not sound like the humans he knew. This message sounded like something else entirely. Counselor Vethrak had no such concerns. When he received the message, he laughed so hard that his attendants worried he might injure himself. "The humans are threatening us," he announced to his staff. "The humans. Those soft little creatures who cannot even build a proper warship. This is the finest comedy I have heard in years." He immediately broadcast the message across the galactic network, adding his own commentary. "Watch this," he said to billions of viewers across 1,000 worlds. Watch the humans try to act strong. Watch them pretend to have power. And then watch what happens when a real civilization shows them their place. The response across the galaxy was mostly laughter. The Kreth found it amusing. The Vorthan thought it was sad. The Malaxi felt embarrassed on humanity's behalf, but not everyone laughed. On the ancient homeworld of the Drenith, the oldest living civilization in the galaxy, there was no laughter. Ambassador Keflon, who had served on the Galactic Council for 300 years, read the human message and went very still. Then he called his staff together. "We are leaving," he said. His assistant, a young Drenith who had only lived for 80 years, was confused. "Leaving where, Ambassador?" "Everywhere that is not Drenith space. Recall all of our people from Torvani territory immediately. Cancel all trade missions. Close our embassies." "But why?" "The humans cannot possibly threaten the Torvani. They have no military." Ambassador Keflon looked at his young assistant with very old eyes. "The humans have existed for 300,000 years. They nearly destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons. They survived. They fought world wars. They survived. They faced plagues, famines, and disasters that would have ended lesser species. They survived." He walked to his window and looked up at the stars. And then they came to the galaxy. They met species that had technology thousands of years more advanced than their own. Species that could destroy their entire civilization with a single fleet. "Yes," the assistant said. "And they submitted. They accepted their place. Did they?" Keflon turned back. "Or did they simply decide that submission was the smartest strategy? Tell me, young one, does that sound like a species that has truly given up? Or does that sound like a species that is waiting?" The assistant had no answer. "I have seen this pattern before," Keflon continued. "The species that survive longest are those who appear weak until they are ready to be strong." The humans smiled at everyone for 80 years. They let themselves be mocked and dismissed and threatened. And they never once fought back. He picked up the human message and read it again. Until now, something has changed. Something has made them decide that the time for smiling is over. And I do not intend to be anywhere near the Torvani when the humans show the galaxy what they have been hiding. Across human space, ships were moving. Cargo vessels that had traveled the trade routes for decades were returning to Earth. Civilian transports were evacuating the outer reach colonies. Scientists and engineers who had spent their careers on alien worlds were coming home. And in the hidden places, the real ships were waking up. Commander Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched her crew work. Officially, her ship was a diplomatic escort vessel, lightly armed and designed for peaceful missions. Unofficially, it was something else entirely. "Commander," Lieutenant Nina Brooks said, "we have received new orders. We are to proceed to the outer reach and position ourselves at the claimed colonies." Lisa nodded. She had expected this. "And the sealed section?" "Authorization codes have been transmitted. We can open it whenever you give the order." Lisa took a deep breath. She had commanded the Horizon's Edge for 7 years. She had known about the sealed section since her first day aboard. Every human captain knew. It was the worst-kept secret in the fleet and the best-kept secret in the galaxy. "Open it," she said. Deep in the ship, locks that had been closed for years began to turn. Doors that had been welded shut were cut open. And inside, preserved in perfect condition, were the weapons that humanity had built in secret. Plasma cannons that could cut through any known shield. Missile systems that could track targets across light years. Electronic warfare suites that could disable entire fleets. Technology that officially did not exist, developed by scientists who officially worked on agricultural research and medical equipment. 80 years of secret development. 80 years of hidden progress. All of the waiting for this moment. The 72 hours passed. The Torvani did not withdraw. They gathered their fleet instead, 200 warships ready to take what they believed was rightfully theirs. Counselor Vethrak broadcast one final message to the galaxy. Watch now as we teach the humans what happens to species who make threats they cannot keep. And then, on every screen, in every home, on every world in the galaxy, Admiral Henry Cole appeared. He looked tired. He looked sad. He looked like a man who had hoped this day would never come, but had always known it would. He spoke only one sentence. "You were warned." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings waited to see what would happen next. On the Drenith homeworld, Ambassador Keflon closed his eyes and said a quiet prayer for the Torvani. Not because he liked them. He did not. But because he had studied human history. He knew what they were capable of when they stopped being polite. And he knew that the Torvani had no idea what they had awakened. The Torvani fleet arrived at Haven Colony, expecting to find frightened civilians and perhaps a few small patrol ships. 200 warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one crewed by soldiers who had conquered a dozen worlds. Counselor Vethrak himself commanded from the flagship. Eager to personally oversee humanity's humiliation, what they found instead was an empty world and a single human ship. The colony had been evacuated. 6 million people gone in less than 3 days. The cities stood silent. The farms were empty. The schools and hospitals and homes had been abandoned so quickly that meals still sat on tables and toys still lay in yards. And in orbit, alone against 200 warships, sat the horizon's edge. Vethrak stared at the display screen and felt the first tiny seed of doubt plant itself in his mind. How had the humans evacuated an entire planet so quickly? Where had they taken 6 million people? And why would they leave only one ship to face his entire fleet? He pushed the doubt aside. It did not matter. One ship or 100, the result would be the same. Human vessel, he broadcast. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Commander Lisa Grant's voice came back calm and clear. Counselor Vethrak, this is your final opportunity to withdraw your fleet and abandon your claims on human territory. I strongly suggest you take it. Vethrak laughed. You suggest? You are one ship against 200. What could you possibly do to us? I could tell you, Lisa replied, but I do not think you would believe me. So let me show you instead. Vethrak snarled and cut the communication. All ships, target that vessel. Destroy it. 200 warships opened fire. Plasma beams and missiles and kinetic rounds. Enough firepower to crack a small moon, all focused on a single target. And then something strange happened. The weapons would not lock. Targeting computers flickered and died. Missiles launched but flew in random directions, spinning away into empty space. Plasma beams fired but missed by kilometers, as if the targeting systems had suddenly gone blind. What is happening? Vethrak demanded. Why are we not hitting them? His tactical officer was pale. I do not know, Counselor. Our systems are not responding. Something is interfering with our targeting arrays. Before Vethrak could respond, the lights on his bridge flickered. Then the engines went silent. Then the shields dropped. All around him, across 200 ships, the same thing was happening. Power systems failing. Weapons going offline. Life support switching to emergency backup. The entire Torvani fleet went dark. Lisa, Grant's voice filled every speaker on every ship. For 80 years, humanity has studied your technology. All of your technology. We know how your ships work better than you do. We know every frequency your shields use. We know every code your computers run. We know the exact signal that will shut down your engines, your weapons. And your life support. Vethrak stood frozen on his dark bridge, surrounded by officers who could do nothing but listen. We could destroy your entire fleet in the next 30 seconds, Lisa continued. We could fire our weapons and you would have no way to stop us. Your shields are down. Your point defense is offline. You are completely helpless. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. But we are not going to do that. Because unlike you, we do not measure strength by how many lives we can take. We measure it by how many lives we can spare. The lights on the Torvani ships flickered back on. Engines hummed back to life. Shields rose again. But the weapons remained offline. You can leave now, Lisa said. Your engines work. Your navigation works. Your life support works. But your weapons will not function until you are back in Torvani space. Go home, counselor. Tell your people what happened here. Tell them that the humans let you live. Vethrak's hands were shaking. He had never felt fear like this before. He had spent his entire life believing the power came from weapons and warships and the willingness to use them. And now a single human ship had shown him how wrong he had been. This is not possible, he whispered. No one has this technology. No one. No one you know about, Lisa replied. That was the point. The Torvani fleet retreated. 200 warships fled from a single human vessel, their crews too shocked to even feel shame. And across the galaxy, the truth began to spread. In the space around Earth, ships appeared. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Ships that had been disguised as cargo freighters and mining vessels. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres. Ships that had been cloaked for decades, waiting for the day they would be needed. The human fleet revealed itself. And the galaxy held its breath. On the Galactic Council station, representatives watched in stunned silence as the true size of humanity's military became clear. The Kreth ambassador counted ships and felt his blood run cold. The Vorthan representative tried to calculate how humanity had hidden so much power and found that his mind could not process the answer. High Speaker Yulan sat very still. He had lived for over 1,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species conquer and be conquered. But he had never seen anything like this. They let them go, he said quietly. They could have destroyed the entire Torvani fleet, and they let them go. Ambassador Kethlan of the Drenith nodded slowly. That is what makes them terrifying, High Speaker. Not their weapons. Not their ships. Their restraint. They have had the power to dominate the galaxy for decades. And they chose not to use it. Why? Yulan asked. Why hide? Why pretend to be weak when they were strong? Kethlan thought for a long moment before answering. Perhaps because they understand something that most species never learn. True power is not about what you can destroy. It is about what you choose not to destroy. The humans smiled at us for 80 years because they could afford to. Because they knew that whenever they stopped smiling, we would have no way to stop them. He looked at the display showing the human fleet. Thousands of ships holding position around Earth. They stopped smiling today. And now the galaxy must decide how to respond to a species that chose kindness when it could have chosen conquest. A species that built the most powerful military we have ever seen and used it to let its enemies run away. Yulan was silent for a long time. What do we do now? He finally asked. Kethlan had no answer. None of them did. Humanity had revealed its true face, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 hours after the Torvani fleet retreated from Haven. Every species with a seat on the council sent representatives. Many sent their leaders. The chamber was more crowded than it had been in centuries. Fear filled the room. Like smoke. High Speaker Yulan called for order, but the voices kept rising. Species that had spent decades ignoring humanity were now shouting over each other, demanding answers, demanding action, demanding that someone do something about the threat that had been growing in their midst all along. They deceived us, the Kreth ambassador bellowed. For 80 years they lied about their capabilities. This is an act of war. They have infiltrated our networks, a Vorthan representative added, his voice shaking. If they can disable Tavani ships, they can disable ours. None of us are safe. We must strike first, someone shouted, before they decide to use their weapons on the rest of us. The chamber erupted in chaos. Accusations flew. Alliances shifted in real time as species tried to position themselves for whatever was coming next on. And then, Ambassador Derek Shaw walked to the speaking platform. He moved slowly, calmly, as if he had all the time in the world. He waited at the podium until the noise died down, until every eye in the chamber was on him. He looked tired, but there was something else in his expression. Something that had not been there before. He was not pretending anymore. I understand your fear, he said. I understand your anger. You feel that humanity has betrayed your trust. And in a way, perhaps we have. He let the silence stretch for a moment. For 80 years, we told you that we were weak. That was a lie. For 80 years, we told you that we had no interest in military power. That was also a lie. We built weapons while you thought we were building farms. We trained soldiers while you thought we were training teachers. We developed technology that you never even knew was possible. The chamber was completely silent now. But here is what was not a lie, Derek continued. We never wanted to use any of it. Not once in 80 years did we ever want to reveal what we had built. We hoped that we would never have to. We hoped that we could live in peace, that we could be the friendly neighbors everyone thought we were, that we could raise our children and tend our gardens and never fire a shot. He looked directly at the Kreth ambassador. The Tavani took that choice away from us. They threatened our people. They claimed our worlds. They laughed when we asked them to stop. His voice hardened. So we stopped asking. You could have conquered us, High Speaker Yuan said. At any point in the last 50 years, you could have taken control of the entire galaxy. Why did you not? Derek smiled, but it was a sad smile. Because that is not who we are. We did not build our fleet to conquer. We built it to defend. We built it so that no one would ever be able to threaten our people without consequence. We built it so that we would never have to be afraid. But you made us afraid instead, someone called out. Yes, Derek admitted. And I am sorry for that. Truly, I am. We never wanted you to fear us. We wanted you to respect us, to treat us as equals, to stop looking at us like we were children playing in a galaxy of adults. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Let me tell you what humanity wants. We want to live in peace. We want to trade and learn and grow alongside all of you. We want to explore the universe and discover its wonders. We want to be your partners, not your rulers. And if we refuse? The Kreth ambassador asked. If we decide that you are too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Derek's expression did not change. Then you will learn what the Tavani learned. We will never fire first, but we will always fire last. And when we fire, we do not miss. The chamber went silent again. Ambassador Kethlan of the Drenith rose from his seat. His people were the oldest civilization in the galaxy, and when he spoke, others listened. I have watched humanity for 80 years, he said. I have watched them smile at insults. I have watched them bow to threats. I have watched them accept abuse that would have driven other species to war. And I always wondered why. He walked slowly to the center of the chamber. Now I understand. They were not weak. They were patient. They were not afraid. They were waiting. They let us believe whatever we wanted to believe about them. because, as long as we underestimated them, they did not have to prove us wrong. He turned to face the council. I have seen many civilizations rise and fall. The aggressive ones burn bright and die fast. The weak ones fade slowly into nothing. But the humans are something different. They are strong enough to destroy us all, and wise enough not to. He looked at Derek Shaw with something that might have been respect. The question before this council is simple. Do we treat humanity as an enemy because they have power? Or do we treat them as an ally because they chose not to use it? The debate lasted for hours. Some species demanded war. Others begged for alliance. In the end, no consensus was reached, but something had changed. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. On Earth, Admiral Henry Cole watched the council session on a screen in his office. Lieutenant Nina Brooks stood beside him, recently transferred from the Horizon's Edge to serve as his aide. They are afraid of us, Nina said. Yes, Cole replied. They should be. But we are not going to hurt them. We just want to be left alone. Cole turned off the screen and looked out his window at the night sky. That is true. But fear is not always a bad thing, Lieutenant. For 80 years, no one feared us, and they treated us like dirt. Now they fear us, and they will think twice before threatening our people again. Is that really what we want? To be feared? Cole was quiet for a long moment. What I want, he finally said, is for my grandchildren to grow up safe. I want them to live on Haven and never worry about some alien fleet coming to take their home. I want them to travel the stars without being mocked or threatened or dismissed. He turned back to Nina. If fear is the price of that safety, then yes. I will pay it. We all will. Because the alternative is watching our people suffer while we smile and pretend we cannot do anything about it. Nina nodded slowly. She understood. They all did. Humanity had revealed its true face to the galaxy. Not conquerors. Not tyrants. Just people who had learned through long and painful experience that kindness without strength was an invitation to abuse. They had built their strength in secret. They had kept their kindness in the open. And now the galaxy would have to learn to live with both. 5 years had passed since the day humanity stopped smiling. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Old alliances had crumbled. New ones had formed. Species that had once looked down on humanity now sent ambassadors bearing gifts and offers of friendship. The ones who had been truly hostile kept their distance and their silence. Admiral Lisa Grant stood at the window of her office on Haven Colony and watched children playing in the park below. The colony had been rebuilt and expanded. 2 million more people had moved here in the years since the crisis. Drawn by the promise of safety that humanity could now openly guarantee, her promotion had come quickly after the confrontation with the Torvani. She was now in charge of defending the entire outer reach, a job that mostly involved making sure no one was stupid enough to threaten human space again. So far, no one had been. The Torvani Collective had not fared so well. When their fleet returned home in shame, when the galaxy learned how easily humanity had defeated them, their empire fell apart. Their subject worlds rebelled. Their allies abandoned them. Their leaders were overthrown by their own people. Blamed for provoking a conflict they had no hope of winning, thought they were no longer a galactic power. They were barely a regional one. And every species in the galaxy had learned the same lesson from their fall. Do not threaten the humans. Lisa turned away from the window as her door opened. Commander Nina Brooks walked in, carrying a datapad and wearing the expression of someone who had interesting news. Admiral, Nina said, we have received word from the Galactic Council. A new species has made first contact. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Already? It has only been 3 years since the last one. They call themselves the Kethrani. Young civilization. Aggressive. confident. Nina paused. They remind me of the Torvani. Lisa sighed. Of course they do. She took the datapad and reviewed the information. The Kethrani had emerged from their home system only a decade ago. They had already conquered 2 neighboring species. They were ambitious, warlike, and absolutely certain that they were destined to rule the galaxy. They have requested a meeting with the Galactic Council to announce their intentions, Nina said. Ambassador Shaw is handling the official welcome. I am sure that will go well, Lisa said dryly. On the neutral station where the Galactic Council met, Ambassador Derek Shaw greeted the Kethrani delegation with the same warm smile he had worn for decades. He shook hands with their leader, a towering figure covered in bony plates, and invited them to address the assembled representatives. The Kethrani leader, who called himself Supreme Commander Voran, did not waste time with pleasantries. We are the Kethrani, he announced, his voice booming through the chamber. We have come to claim our rightful place in this galaxy. We have conquered the weak and absorbed the useless. We will continue to do so until we have built an empire worthy of our greatness. The chamber was silent. Derek noticed that many of the older species were looking at him rather than at the Kethrani. They were waiting to see how humanity would respond. Varan noticed the attention too. He turned to Derek with a sneer. You are the humans, he said. We have heard stories about you. A soft species. Farmers and teachers. You build schools instead of warships. You sing songs instead of conquering worlds. He laughed, and his delegation laughed with him. You are exactly the kind of species we will absorb into our empire. Weak, peaceful, useless. You should be grateful when the time comes. Service to the Kethrani is better than the meaningless existence you have now. Derek smiled. It was a genuine smile, warm and friendly. We appreciate your honesty, Supreme Commander, and we hope you will appreciate ours in return. Humanity has no interest in conflict with your people. We offer trade, cultural exchange, and peaceful cooperation. Voran snorted. Cooperation is for the weak. The strong take what they want. Perhaps, Derek said. But strength comes in many forms. I hope you will take the time to learn about our history before making any decisions you might regret. The Kethrani leader dismissed him with a wave and continued his speech, boasting about future conquests and the inevitable expansion of his empire. After the session ended, Ambassador Kethlon of the Drenith approached the Kethrani leader. The ancient diplomat moved slowly, his great age visible in every step. But his eyes were sharp. A word of advice. Young one, he said quietly. Varan looked down at him with barely concealed contempt. Speak quickly, old creature. I have no time for the words of dying species. Kethlon smiled thinly. The humans smile because they choose to. They are kind because they choose to be. They welcomed you today and offered friendship because that is their nature. He leaned closer and his voice dropped to almost a whisper. But I have seen what happens when they stop choosing kindness. I have seen their ships darken the sky. I have seen their enemies flee in terror. I have seen the most powerful fleet in our history rendered helpless by a single human vessel. Voran's expression flickered. Just for a moment. Pray you never give them reason to stop smiling, Kethlon said, because the galaxy has learned a simple truth over the past 5 years. The polite ones are polite because they can afford to be, and the humans can afford more than any of us. He walked away, leaving the Kethrani leader standing alone, his confidence slightly less certain than it had been a moment before. Back on Haven Colony, Admiral Grant finished reading the report on the Kethrani and set the datapad aside. Do you think they will be a problem? Nina asked. Lisa thought for a long moment before answering. She remembered her own first years in the service, back when humanity was still pretending to be weak. She remembered the anger she had felt every time an alien species mocked her people. She remembered the relief when they finally revealed the truth. And she remembered the Torvani, who had been so confident, so certain of their own superiority, right up until the moment they learned how wrong they were. "No," she finally said. "They will not be a problem. They will bluster and threaten and try to intimidate us. And we will smile and offer friendship and pretend we do not notice. And if they actually attack us..." Lisa looked back out the window at the children playing in the park. Her niece was down there somewhere, chasing her friends through the grass, completely unaware of the dangers that existed beyond the sky. Then they will learn what everyone learns eventually. We are kind because we choose to be. We are patient because we choose to be. We are peaceful because we choose to be. Her voice hardened, just slightly. But we are also human. And when someone threatens our families, our homes, our children, we stop choosing kindness. We stop choosing patience. We stop choosing peace. She turned back to Nina, and there was something old and fierce in her eyes. The polite mode is a choice, Commander. And we can turn it off whenever we want. Outside, the children kept playing. The sun kept shining. And somewhere in the deep black of space, humanity's hidden fleet kept watch. Silent and patient and ready. Ready to smile. Ready to help. Ready, if necessary, to remind the galaxy why the quiet ones should never be underestimated. The day humanity turned off its polite mode had come and gone. But the memory of it remained, a warning and a promise, echoing through the stars forever.